Hi everybody, I'm Dave Thomas. Welcome to a new show here on HHTV called Talk Supe with Dr. Curtis Griffin. He's our superintendent. Our mission of Talk Supe is to keep you informed about what's happening here in the Hatboro-Horsham School District. There's no better to talk to on that subject than Dr. Griffin. So the superintendent joins us for the show, and welcome to the first edition of Talk Supe. Your idea. We're here to put it out there for everybody in HHTV because there's a lot of issues in our district, and I think it is best if they do come from the guy on top.
Well, thank you, Dave, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
We have lots of things to talk about, but before we get into all that kind of stuff, what we've done throughout the years, we've brought our principals in and out of the studio from all of our schools, and we always start out the same way. In the Principles of Learning show, this one's no different. A little bit of background. You know, you're the head guy now in our district, but it obviously doesn't start that way. Tell us a little bit about how you got to this point.
Well, it began a long time ago, back in 1980s, and I was a school teacher and a football coach and a wrestling coach and a track coach for 9 years. And during that time, I was doing some graduate work at West Virginia University and earned actually 2 master's degrees. And after I finished my second master's degree in education administration, I then became an elementary principal in the central part of the state. Wonderful little school district, South Middleton. What made it really interesting about that particular school district, it was small. Yeah. So as the elementary principal, you were responsible for transportation, special education, food service, every aspect of running the building, professional development. So I had an opportunity in that position to learn all aspects of what goes into my district. From there, I moved on to a rather large district, North Allegheny, in western Pennsylvania, which was a very high-performing school district. It gave me an opportunity to work with some incredible administrators in a large district to see how a large suburban district operates. From there, as an elementary principal, I moved into a middle school principal in Hershey, Pennsylvania, another high-performing district, and had an opportunity to look at it from a little different perspective. Became the assistant superintendent at Hershey, and then the opportunity, Hatboro-Horsham came up. They're looking for an assistant superintendent. I was looking to relocate to the area as my wife was beginning a job in this area, and I was fortunate to secure the position of assistant superintendent with Hatboro-Horsham.
Yeah, no, and I've known you. Next year will be my 9th year here. I've known you all those years, and as assistant superintendent of secondary before becoming the superintendent, you've always grown into this position, and when you finally took over the helm and the throne of the district, as we say, you've taken other things with you along the way. And one thing I always ask the principals of our buildings is, from that first moment, that ground level, all the way up to being that one-on-one teacher-student conversation, all the way up to being an administrator, what has been something that you have held on to the entire way that now that this is your helm, you've kept that entire time?
The importance of people, the importance of when you're making decisions to engage in conversation with everyone that decision's going to impact. And when possible, I want the decision to be made at the level that's going to be impacted by the individuals. So that if it's a building level decision, I really want the principal and the teachers and the parents or the students, depending on the decision, to be involved in that level of the decision. If it's a department, I like the department to be included. If it's a transportation, I really want the decision to be involved with the folks in our transportation department and our business director, and then work its way up to the board. And there are certain decisions that are so important that I involve the board because they own that part of the decision. So it's really involving the people. And I found along the way that the reason I want to involve the people and all the people is that I always don't know the answer. I have a sense, I have an idea of what's important and where we're going to go. But the people who are at the ground level, who are involved every day in whatever that decision is going to impact, they have a lot of good information. And I want to make sure that gets considered.
You know, it's interesting. If I had a CEO of a corporation here and asked them that exact same question, hopefully that's the exact same answer they'd give in the corporate world. But yet we're in education. You have a mix of both in your job, but yet you still relate it back to the people. Why is that so important to you?
I think that, well, and even today, if you read a lot of the leadership literature that folks are talking about and looking at, There's so much information that's available to us. Things are changing so fast. You can't expect the person at the top to know everything.
Right.
You want that person to have an understanding of what's going on, but the people who really have the critical information are the people that live within that environment, that role every single day. And that's why they need to be involved.
I'm happy to hear that. As an employee of the district, as well as I'm sure the stakeholders out there, yes. they want to hear those things too. Let's move on into some of the things. We're going to go backwards, actually.
Okay.
Chronologically, we're going to go back over some of the major events that happened throughout the year, some of the highlights that we had. Opening ceremony, I think, of the field probably had to be one of the defining moments for you. But take us back. This was, at first, a controversial decision. This was something that people had said, what do we need that for? And you battled that. And you pushed it forward to say, this is something that we can set ourselves aside and hang our hats on. No, all pun intended. Tell us why.
The decision was 5 years in the making. The decision started many years ago when some folks came to the school board and suggested that we should have one of our fields turfed. And at that point in time, we were actually looking at not just our turf field or our stadium field, but we were trying to look at what are our needs overall for the entire district.
Okay.
What are our program needs? What are some of the challenges that we faced? And we knew then, 5 years ago, that we've added sports programs, we've added some teams, we've had a tremendous amount of pressure on our field use. We've gotten to the point where we were concerned about the safety of our students, because we had some of our programs in the spring that had to have their practice in the parking lot, because at that point in time, the fields, because of the water, because of the drainage, all of those things were creating some challenges for us.
Right.
And then plus the sheer use. And we knew that if we went to, as we looked at all of our options, the one option was to give consideration to a turf field,
right.
because the turf field allowed us to schedule practices not only horizontal but vertically. We could have one practice on top of another practice. We also would never have any issues for games because of the fields being in really terrible condition. So what we actually did is we looked at a study of all of our fields,
right.
and started to ask the question, what do we need to do to bring all of our fields? The turf field, the stadium, was only one part,
okay.
and that was to put that into play. We've done a lot of work on our other fields to enhance their qualities. But back to the turf, we reached a point in time where the board had, in a very prudent way, had allocated money so that we were using capital reserve funds. We got to a place where we also knew, based on the economy, that the cost of installing a turf field has dropped. So we leveraged the cost savings of what was currently happening in the economy with money we had already reserved over a period of time, so we wouldn't have to impact our taxes, use the capital reserve, and then put the field in. And it's been a blessing ever since for us.
I have to agree with that. I think it's almost an afterthought now when we talk about the fact that people were naysayers about it, yet they go out there and they see the fact, the HH emblem right in the middle of it, and it's a showcase. It's a showcase. And it's something that all of us should be proud of.
It's actually it's used almost every single day.
Yeah.
If it's not used by our teams,
right.
We've actually rented to other organizations, so there's some revenue coming in. Now the revenue is moved into a plan for us for any type of additional maintenance that we would need on the field. And even the other night I was amazed. I was, because we have cameras everywhere,
yes.
I can take my iPad and I can take a look and see what's happening throughout the district. And we had a terrible rainstorm, and I was curious to how the rain was impacting our buildings. So I opened up the iPad, I went to the cameras, and here it is. I want to say it's around 9:30 on a Friday night.
Right.
It's raining, and there's an adult soccer game going on our field. So I was really excited to see that. And
yeah. And those of us who spent time on that old field,
that wouldn't have happened before.
Ever. I mean, there would have been probably 6 inches of mud for that, and we'd been tearing it up, and all the crabgrass would be displaced, because it was never real grass, it was all crabgrass in the middle.
And on top of that, then we would have had a tremendous amount of rehab over the summer to try to prepare the field.
And then it'd be blocked off, nobody would be able to use it, it'd be cut off. Yeah, absolutely. So the nightmares are avoided.
We're using it all the time, and that's exciting.
Very good. All right, next one, and this one obviously a little personal favorite of my own. the people, they may not realize, because, you know, to them out in TV land, it looks the same coming out. But what they don't see is what's behind the scenes and what's been improved. And very much a mission that you have shepherded is to develop our TV program, our film program, with a lifeblood surgency of money. You know, actually, this stuff costs money. It's one thing to say you're interested, but you got to fund it. Yeah. Why is it so important to you?
Well, first, I'm hopeful that we bought a camera that at least makes me look good. Well, I don't know if we've done that. We'll know that when we see it. But
that one right there on the screen. That's the one. That's
the one.
That's
okay, good. But there's a couple reasons. One, it's so important that we connect with our community.
Right.
And I haven't had a chance to tell you or Mr. Anderson. The other night, I was doing a town hall meeting at Blair Mill, and we were talking about some of the successes for the year. A gentleman in the audience said, well, I want you to know we really like what you put on the TV.
Yeah.
If you want to know what's happening in the school district, watch the channel. And I was very pleased to get that feedback from one of our residents. Our goal is to be able to use this media, not only through the television,
right,
but also over the internet, to be able to share with the community and the world what's happening in Hatboro-Horsham School District. From our athletic programs,
sure,
our educational programs, our student performances. We have a lot of great things that happen. And this media is a great way to share that with folks.
Yeah, it's interesting because you and I have had this conversation before, and then but never made obviously privy through the television. But this is a machine. You know, we have our own channel. Absolutely. We have our own network.
2 channels.
You know, that's given out through Verizon and Fios. You know, and now you get through Comcast. It's given out. There's potential viewership, and I tell this to my students all the time, of more than 300,000 viewers that can see our programming out there in the grid. And it's all what you do with it. So we've made that classification of this is going to be our machine to put out there for our people of what our kids are doing inside the walls of our schools.
Exactly. It's exciting. What I track is I don't have a way yet, or maybe it's there and you can help me, to track our viewers on the TV. But I do track our website hits.
Yes.
And I get the weekly reports and the monthly reports. And it's amazing how when we're running some certain programs, our website hits go up.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that opportunity. It shows me that our community is interested and they want to know what's happening, and we want them to know what's happening.
And we can showcase all the great things our students are doing, our teachers are
Absolutely.
doing, all those good things. It's a machine, and
Absolutely.
we need to use that well. So
We're
first
really
of all, thank you for
you're
that.
Welcome.
I
Excited
appreciate
about
that.
it. Extremely excited.
Now this is a big deal too, because for the first time, and this has been tested. Bob, I know you can put the camera up on yourself there for a second. Why don't you put that camera up on yourself and turn around and say hi? There you are. That's Bob Anderson. Bob has been with the district now. This is the end of his 2nd full year with us. And Andrew Morse next to him over there. The gentleman behind the scenes that you'll never see in front of the camera. But together we all kind of work this thing called TV Crew. And all of us combined have made this new push for programming and initiatives to put everything out there for you as the viewers to see. But history is in the making, and we're going to have it coming up in a week. We've tested, and for the first time ever, and you got to give people some enlightenment on this, because this is every year, this time of year, one question always has come up. Can I watch graduation live outside because I don't want to come to the stadium?
Yes.
And the answer for the last 9 years since I've been here has been no, you can't.
Yes.
Because it costs about 10 grand to do it, it costs even more to do it this way, and everybody always said, we can't do it. Now we can.
We can do it.
Tell us how this has come about.
Well, for years, we have been concerned about, first of all, we want to share graduation with everybody in the family. It's that moment in an individual's life, it's that transition. When you earn your high school diploma and then you go off onto college or out into the world, but it's a very important landmark. And we want to make sure we can share that, not only with mom and dad, who can come to the stadium, and we want them in the stadium, obviously, of course, and we also are hoping for good weather,
of course, always.
So good weather. But with that, then we're looking to be able to broadcast it over the internet. And we have been planning, as we've been building everything we've been doing around the stadium, we've also been building the infrastructure so that whatever event we hold at the stadium, we can broadcast.
Yes.
And we finally been able to fulfill that dream of making all the connections. And I know we've had a test because I've seen the test.
I know.
And we're looking forward to it. And so our seniors can tell mom in California or grandma in California, wherever they might be, or if they're anywhere in the world, that graduation is going to be on Monday the 11th, and go to the website and you can see it.
You want to talk about hits? You want to talk about hits on a website? That's
exactly.
going to be through the roof on that one. So, and that's again why we've done it.
Exactly.
Let's go back to March 29th. Was another day you were using all those cameras. You were monitoring it everywhere,
yes.
and I know you've been talking about that. The emergency preparedness drill, quite an event here at the high school alone. I've talked with the other principals about it as well, what it was to their building. But you were right there in the nerve system as well as out on campuses. I saw you on the way to Simmons. What was that like, and why did we do that?
Well, the environment that we're in today requires schools and all of us to take consideration to how we're going to handle emergency situations.
Right.
There's all different types of emergency situations. For school district, the watershed moment was back with Columbine.
Sure.
And after Columbine, we all started to reshape our perspective on what we need to do for school safety after that tragedy. And there have been tragedies since then. But what we've learned is that the better we prepare and the more precautions we take, our goal always is to prevent a tragedy from happening. But we also know that once an event occurs, we can save individuals and save people from harm by how well we respond. And what's so important, it's not just how we respond and that we practice our response as adults or as the teachers and the principals and administrators, but we also need to make sure that we are integrating our work with the local emergency teams and the police officers and those first responders and the county responders. And we also then want our students to understand what they need to do. One of the most recent incidents that happened in our country when they, and I believe it was in Ohio, when they interviewed the students afterwards, one of the things that students said, you know what really helped? We knew what to do. We were prepared. So our goal is that if there is a tragedy, and there's those tragedies that could happen within our school, but we also take into consideration other tragedies. We sit along Horsham Road, we're along 611, there's always the possibility of car accidents, truck accidents, there's always a threat around the country of terrorism, and we learned some of those challenges after 9/11, how that impacted the schools in New York City and also in New Jersey. So we want to think through, if there's ever some type of tragedy or event within our community, how do we respond? And so when we set that drill up, each school had different scenarios. So one of our schools might have had a situation with an intruder, another school had a weather emergency, another school had a flooding situation, another school just had a situation where we were going to relocate. At the high school, I think we had a gas leak where we had to relocate. And what was exciting about that, and the reason I came here for that relocation, is we've planned on relocating all of our high school students to Simmons, but we've never done that. So the question was, could we do that?
Absolutely.
And we did, and our students were marvelous. They handled it really well. The staff, the students at Simmons, and our faculty handled it really well, and all of our students moved over. So we know that's a viable option for us. So the purpose was to test some of the things that we put in place. It also was to help our students understand the scenario. And after we've done that, we've sat down, we've revisited it, we debriefed with all of our the police force and local responders, and now it's moving forward to look at what we're going to do next year. And what was interesting, what you were talking about, which is exciting, is how we leveraged our new technologies.
No, that was incredible.
So we were using Skype, we were using iPads, we were using laptops. So not only did we have communication, but we've also had visual. And can we do that in a crisis? I'm not sure. But in one that we've staged, we know that we have these tools available to us, and I think it will help us.
And years ago, you had put that in place as one of the things. I remember being in that meeting with you way back, where it was, listen, set this up ahead of time, so if and when, God forbid this ever happens, we have the technology in place to do it. And you're right, at a moment's notice you might not be able to, but at least you know the wires are here, you know the technology is in place, that if all the what-ifs are possible, you're ready for it. That has to make you feel pretty good as being the chief.
It does, and I failed to mention another important group. We want our parents to know.
Definitely.
We want our parents to know, here's what we're going to do in emergency. Here's what we're doing with your children.
We got them.
Here's how we're going to communicate to you. You can check our website. You can check our TV channel. We're going to send you an email blast. We're going to send you a phone blast. So the information is coming to you. then you know where you can receive that information, and that can help mom and dad make decisions. Because if it would ever be, and God forbid, we hope that it never happens,
of course,
that there's some type of an event that's regional, we want mom and dad to be able to focus on what they need to do and know that their children are going to be safe with us.
I think your transparency goes a long way to build the confidence of the people involved in it too, because I think when we're not afraid to say to parents and to students, this is what we're doing, we got you. And they look back it up, the confidence exudes. Because it's like, we've got it, we've got a plan in place, we know what we're doing, we've been briefed, you're going to be all right.
Yes.
And then they don't fear then, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know?
I wouldn't say they wouldn't fear. You know,
I think you're right.
They're easy,
fear,
but they know, they have a sense that here's what's happening with my child.
They're going to be okay. I'll still want to rush them and go pick them up.
Absolutely.
But you're right. No, I think that transparency
we'll help them understand what's going to happen.
Talk about transparency. Here we go. Leading into this one. You know, we have to ask this question. We right now are in new territory. Financially, every school district in our state, and we're not a political show. You can align yourself wherever you are politically. We're not going to say one's right, one's wrong, maybe. But at the same time, it's different right now. You have a very interesting job. You have to manage all this.
Is that what you call it? Interesting.
I'm being nice. I mean, it is tough. It is a really tough job. Doc, I mean, I don't know how you manage what you do and still keep a smile on your face, because right now the stuff from Harrisburg that's being pitched our way is just dreadful as far as what we're used to. And I think that's the key point.
It's different. I wouldn't say it's dreadful, but the roles have changed. You know,
definitely.
Economically, the economy impacts all of us. Impacts business, impacts real estate. We're all being felt by it. School districts are no different. We know that, as you know, our revenues are down.
Right.
Not significant, and we're very fortunate that we live in a community that the economy hasn't had a huge impact, but it's had an impact on our community. On the other hand, what happened several years ago under the Rendell administration, they put in place Act 1.
Yeah.
Act 1 puts a ceiling on our ability to levy taxes.
Okay.
So the school board each year has a limit under Act 1.
Right.
Last year it was 1.4, this year it's 1.7. That's a real challenge, because what that means is no matter what, this is the amount of money we have to run an organization. And we're a corporation.
That's
We're
right.
running around an $86 million budget. Around $65 million of that goes to staffing costs and benefit costs. So it's a challenge. So each year we have to look at those dollars available to us, and we have to make some decisions on what is the best way to allocate our resources. In some areas, we've increased allocations because they're parts of our program that we want to see grow, that we believe is value to where we're going to be in the future. And then there are other programs we take a serious look at and say, you know what? That program had its day, it was very valuable, but that's not key for where we need to be tomorrow, where we need our students to be tomorrow. So those are the very, very difficult decisions that we need to make.
And going back to your point previously in the show, they all involve people. They all involve people. So, and there's emotional attachment to every decision that's made. There's ties into everything. How do you manage that well? And then I'll piggyback off that one. You have a vision. What is the vision moving forward to get through these difficult times, these slightly challenging times, and managing it to see the future ahead and project that onto people to say, we've got this covered, but here's where I really want to be?
Well, the vision is quite simple. Great schools for all students.
Right.
And that have a culture of continuous improvement. That's the key. Yeah. Great schools, all students, work to continuously improve. And so as we go back through and you start to say, well, what is our strategy? Well, first and foremost, each year when we begin the process, what's critical is what's our core programs? We don't want to touch our core programs.
Right.
We're also a comprehensive high school.
Yep.
And when I talk about all students, we want to make sure that we have programming for all students. So if we have students who want to come through our school district and go off to be an art major somewhere or something of that nature, we provide those opportunities. Business, it's there. Veterinarian, it's there. Some type of microbiology, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have students each year that go to Ivy League schools, that go to private schools, that go to state schools, that go to training programs, that go to the military. We want to make sure that each of those have a course along the way to get to that place. So to do that, when we start to look at where we're going to allocate our resources,
Yeah.
we want to maintain the quality of our core programs. And then we start working back from there. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we do that? I know surrounding districts have had to take a serious look
Yes.
at arts and music. We haven't had to do that. We've been very fortunate. And I'm thankful that we've been fortunate to do that. And that's our plan for the future, that we don't have to look at those types of cuts. But there are cuts from time to time that need to be made, but not to our core, and trying to keep in mind the focus on our children. Great schools, all of our children, all of our students. So that's how we work through it.
All right, I'm going to ask you one thing. Tip your hat to this a little bit. If there's something, let's talk maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, that you definitely want us to either have achieved or to be just before we achieve it, what is it for our district?
There's a couple of things. I would like to be able to say one. Obviously, the constant improvement,
Yes.
safe schools, constant improvement is always there. But if we're going to say where are we going to go next, I think one of the things we have to be looking at is more of our virtual tools. Look at more blended learning. My goals for our high school students have been this vision of, when a high school student graduates from here, I would love for them to have been able to have an internship, to get
Right.
a sense in a role outside of the school in something they think they might want to engage
Yes.
in. I also think that it's important for our students to engage in some type of virtual learning experience.
Mhm.
It's part of what's going to be in the college level. It's
Sure.
growing. It's one of the fastest growing
Yes, it is.
components in education, whether it's a blended strategy, or which is a combination of virtual and classroom,
Right.
or if it's a strictly virtual solution. But those are there. And I'd like to have more dual enrollment opportunities for our students, so that we have students that, under the current law, allows our students to take college credits that count both for high school and college.
Mm.
And I think that gives some of our students an opportunity to actually go into a college with anywhere from 3 credits up to 9, 15 credits.
Wow,
It's
whole semester.
possible. So that's a big help to students, especially when many of our college students today are in college for 4.5
Sure,
years.
yeah.
So now maybe we back end a little bit of that experience for them.
Cut down on financial aid too.
Yeah,
Loans.
but even on the other side, I do have another area that we're exploring, and that is the potential of looking at our own charter school. And it's to look at charter schools are the fastest growing, next to virtual as a whole entity. Charter schools are the fastest growing entity in terms of public education in the United States and in Pennsylvania. Enrollment in charter schools in the last 10 years has increased roughly 270%. It's an incredible growth area. And and people ask me, why do you want to open up a charter school?
And I want to ask you, how did that work?
Why
Yeah.
would you want to open up a charter school? Well, right now, first of all, we're exploring it. We're working with a consultant to just explore, is it feasible? But when you say, now, why? First of all, charter schools allow you to innovate. Charter schools you're not required to address the same type of rules and regulations that our high school has to. For example, we could actually open a charter school that focused all on television.
Oh, amazing
You
idea.
might like that, yeah, exactly. But we could also, there are charter schools that focus on science and technology.
Right.
There are charter schools that focus on the arts. There are, just you name it, there's an environmental charter school. They allow you to do some very unique and some different things. It also allows you to do some unique things with staffing. You know, when you came on board, you came to us with a very different profession.
Right.
But you wanted to teach.
Mhm.
And so you moved from you probably would have been a great teacher that first day on the job here.
Thank you.
But you weren't credentialed.
Right.
Well, what a charter school, but you went back and got credentialed.
Right.
What charter schools allows you to do is you can have staff members that might not hold a teaching credential, an engineer,
But they know their stuff.
or whatever that credential might be, and they can be part of your teaching staff, which allows you to do some unique items. There's also a financial concern I have. One of our biggest challenges today on the financial side is this past year we spent $512,000 sending students to other charter schools.
Right.
So there's an interest. When a student leaves our school and goes to a charter school, whether it's a virtual charter school or brick and mortar, it costs us roughly $12,000 per student.
Wow.
Every one that goes out the door.
Really?
I know that in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be charter schools in suburban Philadelphia area. There'll be more of them. not just virtual,
Yeah.
but brick and mortar. And I believe we should be part of that because I believe we can innovate, but I also don't want to see our tax dollars leaving here to go somewhere else. I'd rather see our tax dollars educating our students right here if we can provide the same type of education they're looking for.
Well, and that's a vision, and you are a visionary person, but at the same time, practically, part of your vision has to be, where do you put this thing? Is it the base? Are we talking about the base at this point? Like, what goes, let's talk about what's going on with the base. It's a huge undertaking, whatever's going on with the base. But is that going to be our little nugget? Do we put it over there?
No. Well, we could. You can put a charter school anywhere.
Right.
You can lease a space. You can put a school within a school. You can put them anywhere. It can be completely virtual. The first phase is to understand the feasibility. Is this a viable option for the Hatboro-Horsham School District?
Right.
And it might not be a secondary. Maybe we want an elementary charter school, and maybe it's a Montessori charter school. The options are endless to say we could do this or we could do that. It could be a middle school. It could be in any different area. So we're just exploring, is it feasible, is it viable under the current laws and current regulations? That's the first phase.
All right.
If that answer comes back, yes, then we move into now what?
Right.
And once we establish what, then we establish the
How?
implementation and how. Exactly.
Right.
So it's a process that we'll go through and explore. Now you mentioned the base.
Yeah, we got to talk about the base.
I think the base is a wonderful, exciting opportunity for our community. Whether
Absolutely.
you were for an airport or not,
Okay.
that decision's been made. And we know that the base, the plan has been completed. It's been submitted to the Department of, I believe, Defense for approval.
First, yeah.
And then from there it goes on to HUD and a number of processes. But once everything is approved, we do have an opportunity for about 60 acres of land to build a new school. Our thinking in the future is a new middle school.
Okay.
But that could be 15 years down the road.
Right.
There's a lot of other development on the base that has to happen before we get to there.
And so you've given us a lot of other things, and a lot of them are tangible as far as a building, as far as those things go. Is there anything a little bit more abstract, I guess, as far as the students go, as far as parents, that you say, this is one thing that, before I leave this job at 20 years from now, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to make sure this is in place?
It's the work that we need to do towards, I think we have great hard skills.
Mm-hmm.
We offer our science courses, our math courses, our arts, whatever those content area courses are. We have great programs, we have great teachers, and our students leave here with a phenomenal background. I want to make sure we're working on those other skill sets. We capitalize them, we call them and capsulize them in the area of 21st century skills.
Yep.
But there are things like problem solving, creative thinkers, collaboration, collaborators. When we talk about collaboration, some of the things that we have to look at is not only you and I collaborating together, but me, you, and maybe someone over across the state.
Yeah.
Learning how to collaborate from different places in the world on the things that we're, because that's what the future is going to be. And our goal is not just to provide a good quality education, but help our students be prepared for what the future is going to bring to them.
We could probably spend, I don't know, another hour talking with Dr.
Now that you have me rolling, yes.
I know, really. He's warmed up and ready to go now. But we are going to close this one out.
Okay.
We have to save some for the next show.
For the next show.
We'll do that.
All right.
But again, this is our first edition of Talk Soup, and it has been an absolute pleasure talking with Dr. Curtis Griffin. And we look forward to more shows like this one, like other ones, all kinds of programming coming up for you in the 2012-2013 school year. For all of us, the staff and the teachers and the administrators of the Hatboro-Horsham School District. On behalf of HHTV, Bob Anderson, Andrew Morse, I'm Dave Thomas. Thanks for watching, everybody.